huge amount of uncertainty always when I do something, always. And even though as you do it more, of course, you might know or have a somehow deep in you that that this will probably work out, but still feeling very sort of insecure about it until like it's done and you can see like, okay. And even to that point, like to show your work, I think it's always super vulnerable, because when you put a lot of effort and you do put, you know, a piece of your soul into the work, it means a lot to you. So when people say also, it's not about the likes and stuff, of course it's not, that shouldn't guide you, but still we're human. Of course it will affect you. So you're not like made of stone, especially if you're a creative person. But then it's just about, I think, sort of place your energy where it should be, which is the work again, like being sort of creative. And that's where I feel like I'm most in my element, and I feel the happiest is when I'm creating.
Hello there, I'm Dasha Pears. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Inspiration in Action podcast. The goal of this podcast is to allow you to be inspired by and learn from other creatives, their process, where they get the ideas from, and how they develop their creative mindset. In this episode, I'm talking to a creative soul who keeps blowing our minds on Instagram by mixing reality and magic in her photos. Besides being a successful Instagrammer who has been featured on the official Instagram account multiple times, she's also a blogger and has a popular YouTube channel where she shares her photography secrets with the world. We are talking about the life of a content creator, how you can turn your social media hobby into a successful career, and how to keep surprising your audience by adding magic to your photos. Please enjoy this interview with Veronika, known as Kutovakeka on Instagram.
Hi!
Hey Dasha!
So great to see you.
So good to see you. Thank you for having me.
I'm happy to have you. And it's been half a year since we last met, and
it's crazy.
Yes, yeah. You moved to London, and I'm so happy for you. It looks like that's your spot, that you found yourself. It's really nice.
Definitely. But so funny. Bella, our cat, just came and knocked the whole thing over, so I had to like quickly like, oh hi. So it's really like happy to be here.
Yes, it's amazing. So for those guys who didn't know, we met already in real life, and that's so cool because I don't get to meet many people from my Instagram, but that's a real like happy coincidence that we were in the same city at the same time, and we even got a chance to work together, and it was lots of fun. And initially, like probably you guys saw the pics with black dots in them, and Veronika wearing a black dress with with white polka dots. Originally my idea was a bit different, but when we started talking, I realized that I needed something more, and it's kind of like Veronika gave me some of her creative power and inspiration, so it was really
that's nice.
great, and we really experienced synergy, I think, when we shot, right?
Definitely, yeah. No, I enjoyed it a lot. And also that picture, when I posted it on my own profile, people were just like, whoa, this is so amazing, and really sort of kind of funny, like how sort of I feel like we have a lot of things kind of in common, like there are some themes, but then still like in very different way, like I would say. But it was really fun to come and collaborate on a project like that.
Yes,
really, and also to be sort of really like in front of the camera and you behind the camera, and me, I can just relax and sort of I trust you.
Yes, finally you don't have
really
to
nice. Exactly. Like, run around and
Veronika, tell us about how you started, how the whole Instagram, how you found Instagram first of all, and did you take photos like long time ago, or did you just start it when you discovered Instagram? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I've been doing now Instagram sort of like every day or like full time for 2 years. So 2 years ago I started.
Only 2 years, oh my God, people!
I know. And before that, I did take some pictures for a knitting blog that I had. So I was always sort of into it, but never I did never have like a DSLR and nothing like that. And then I was a little bit lost in my life. I didn't really know. I had graduated university, and I found a podcast called #Authentic that you were on, talking to Sarah Tasker, and then sort of really got this, my eyes opened up. Oh, there's this Instagram and people share photos, and that can actually become sort of a career. And then without really thinking like, oh, I'm going to become an Instagrammer now, but I just started to every day sort of take photos and post something, and putting in the filters and realizing like, hey, oh, this is how you make like a nice photo and get the feel and all those things, like really sort of like on the iPhone, and like, oh, this looks nice. Yeah, and then it sort of went from there. I got featured on Instagram in September 2017 the first time, and that sort of got me to feel like, maybe there is something here, and maybe I should sort of pursue it for real. And I was still having like part-time jobs and still not really knowing what I was going to do with my life. But then I really started to put in a lot of effort, and as I put more in work and more effort, I saw that it grew and opportunities came my way. So yeah, and then I've just stuck with it, and now I'm completely sort of self-employed and just doing that.
Nice. And how many times have you been featured by Instagram, all in all?
6 times now.
Wow, my God, seriously.
I know.
Congratulations.
Just keep trying, and then yeah.
Yes. You will hopefully give us some tips today on how to get featured by the app. Right now, I have one question. What's the hardest part for you in your creative work, which is connected with Instagram?
I think the hardest part up until now has been just patience, like just sticking with it. I think that's definitely one of the hardest parts, especially in the beginning when you don't really know yet if it's gonna become sort of anything that will give you anything back. You're just sort of putting the work in and putting your stuff out there, and maybe even spending money on gear and all these things. So I think living with that uncertainty is definitely something still that is, I think, the hardest part. And maybe now the second thing that is also, it's quite stressful. So then suddenly when you do have a lot of work, just managing that and sort of being sort of self-employed, I mean, always as a freelancer, how to still stay disciplined and not like work all the time and those kind of things.
Yeah. And do you still do knitting?
I do, but now it's just like as a hobby. So it's like, it's my hobby.
Okay, but it used to be more of a profession. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I tried it like for a year or so. I would knit and I would take like orders and I would sell my knitwear online and really, but I then realized it's more of a hobby. It's not really my passion. Like photography was much more sort of something that I felt that I wanted to do also as work, and the knitting thing is more like a private and hobby.
And that's interesting. And many people ask me also, how did you discover photography as this passion? And I always say that you need to try many things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so.
Dancing, right? You're
that's what I studied. I studied dancing and choreography and graduated and did something completely else.
Yeah, but does this choreographical education help you? Probably does.
Definitely, because there's so much still also when you think about dance and making a performance, it's so visual. We talk about composition all the time and balance and all these things, and also having a lot of art philosophy and history and just sort of getting that, and also of course kind of getting disciplined in how you think creatively and how to get ideas and maybe how to process them and all these kind of things that I think is really, you can sort of apply it to any creative thing then.
I'm sure that right now some of the people who are listening to us, they're just in the very, very beginning, and they kind of want to get into the Instagram thing, but they're not sure how to start. What would be your advice?
Well, one advice is definitely to find some people or accounts that you admire, that you can have a bit like as a role model. When you have like a pop star that you admire and then you like have the posters on the wall. Like, I mean, I was definitely that, and I still have that. I think sort of having the stories. yeah, like because it inspires you and you can see like a model for somebody did it
Yes.
like that. So I think that helps a lot. Then of course it's, trying a lot of things, maybe even copying, imitating a bit when you're not sure really yet, and just keep at it. I think the only thing is really to just work at it, like with anything again, just to finding your thing. And also maybe like, is it really something for you or not? I think you have to be a person that is okay with spending quite a lot of time by themselves and working. And like, I'm sure, like as a photographer as well, like you have to kind of like to be in that
Of
space.
course.
So yeah.
Yeah, and who are your role models at the moment?
Well, the first was Sarah Tasker, definitely, that I found,
Yeah.
and started to listen to all her podcast episode and like taking notes, like, oh, you use hashtags like this. And then at the moment, because I started a YouTube channel, so I've been really looking a lot at, she's called Sorel Amor. She's this quite big YouTuber, travel, and
Okay.
yeah, and her
If you
work
can
has really inspired me.
post links maybe to the
Yeah, I can put it, I don't know if I can comment it here, the name of
you
the,
can actually. Yeah.
yeah.
And I actually will make a comment that we have an interview with you.
So that's the YouTuber that I was
Okay,
mentioned.
thank you.
Yeah. So she's really, and she also talks about photography. She has a lot of tips on taking your own photos and while you're traveling, and has kind of an energy that I sort of really connect to. And so she's been like, at the moment, she's sort of like role model.
Okay.
Let me
So
see if I
you recently started a YouTube channel. You just mentioned.
Yes.
I actually saw some of it, and it's amazing. And
Oh, thank you.
congratulations on that. Is it like a completely new experience for you? Is it very different from Instagram? How do you feel about it?
Yes and no. I think it took me so long to get comfortable just being in front of the camera and speaking, because my native language is not English. So I have a lot of mannerisms. I say like and sort of like a million times, and just
course.
sort of looking back at you and you're like, oh.
The same.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
So that took a long time, but the reason I wanted to do a YouTube is because I want to get better at making video. And I know that to get better, I need to have some kind of accountability or something that allows me to sort of practice it. So then I thought like, okay, this is the perfect way. And also I started to feel on Instagram that there's a lot of things I maybe want to talk about and maybe show a little deeper, but then in the caption it's really short, and the stories is like, you have to like speed it up really. So then that's sort of the motivation behind it, but it's a like very steep learning curve for me at the moment.
Yeah. Do you know the technical part of the video making now, or are you still learning?
I'm still learning. I'm using Premiere Pro. So, and it's quite, if you've used Photoshop, it's sort of, some things are similar, but some things are very different. And of course, when it's moving image and you have audio and all these things, it just becomes so many more parts to sort of, in a photo, I feel like now I can control it. It's sort of, I'm okay with it. I don't get so stressed. And then it just takes such a long time, but I feel I'm just going to upload my 5th video today, and I feel already just doing 5 videos that I've learned so much. Like it's like just, like how do I put a title centered, and then like, okay, Google, how do you put a title centered? So everything just takes like forever.
Yeah. I totally understand it. Well, you mentioned Sarah Tasker as one of your role models, but her content, at least on Instagram, is sort of more of very lifestyle. It's very nice and beautiful, but you chose a completely different path. So tell me about how you discovered this sort of whimsical style, first of all, and then of course we will dive deeper into your tips for creative ideas. So
I started with kind of also very sort of this lifestyle-y, or kind of trying to copy very much sort of that look. I wanted to see like, how do you get that feel, what kind of, like a lot of nature and even the colors, and shooting daylight, and everything is a little tinted blue and just sort of very these basic things, just trying to understand how do you get a certain feel for a photo. Then I started to discover, well, All That Is She, of course, that is like the big one of these kind of whimsical edits. I saw her account, also Bukit Bronte, who is now called From Be With Love, and others that were sort of doing more of these kind of whimsical photos. And I think that's sort of maybe closer to my personality, also to have this goofier side and trying out things. And so then I felt like that really fits me and I want to do that. And that's sort of how, and then it's sort of, now I feel like I'm, again, you know, it's always like you do things and then you sort of find a new style and you like discover new things. So now again, I feel like I'm coming like to the next sort of chapter of my journey or whatever.
Okay.
But it's like a mix of all these different influences. And I think that's the thing you have to do. That's why I think it's so important also that you also look so much what others are doing and experiment, because then it becomes like a mix of all those things becomes your thing.
Yeah, so what's your current inspiration? You said that you're at the new stage now, so
yeah. So I'm sort of like the whole fashion, like high fashion photos. That's where I'm at the moment. And I've been looking on Pinterest, like Tim Walker, all his like fantastical these, just like, oh, like how could I create that? How could I like try to like, if I get some cardboard from somewhere and like trying to do. So that's like really what I'm now looking at for inspiration. Then I of course do it my own way, and something comes in, something doesn't, but that's my inspiration at the moment.
Okay. So I'm sure that so many people ask you the same question all over and again, but we will ask the same. What are your top tips for getting creative ideas?
So one top tip that I think helps me often, which I try to do, is to combine things, like unexpected things, like things that maybe don't usually go together, and try to combine those. So that can be like a concept or colors or moods. So yesterday I posted a picture of an angel that has a fear of heights. So it's like an angel
it's you know,
gonna fly, but then it's like, I don't wanna. So trying to kind of find those things that maybe aren't like the most obvious ones. And that's, I think, something, because we all sort of have seen so many. So when we think of a girl in an apple tree or something, we all get this image of like, oh, how's that gonna look? So how could you twist that or do something unexpected with that? I think that's something like some of my best photos have come that way. And then other creative tips, well, to look for inspiration is one, definitely, sort of to constantly, you know, soak in things and be really sort of open to it, because it can come from so small things, I'm sure, as you know, like it can be like the tiniest thing that you see suddenly, like, and then you get like this whole idea. And then also to just work, like keep doing it. Don't think too much, just do it.
Yeah. And I think that I discovered your account when you were still at the very lifestyle stage, and you were all about knitting, and I love that content as well. But now, of course, it's completely different, and it's really interesting. So what do you do to get featured on Instagram?
Well, first of all, like take part in the Weekend hashtag projects a lot. I mean, I've been featured 6 times, partly because I've just been participating in them like a lot, like almost every weekend. So I think that's really like just, and you will sort of, as you do it, you'll also learn things at the same time. And the second thing is, because they always like announce this theme, and I think it's good to really try to take a sort of while and think about it, like what you could do with it, because I think they feature photos that really have that theme, sort of, that it immediately makes sense, like, oh, of course, but always with like a little bit of a twist. So still trying to think out of the box, but still so it really fits with it, if that makes sense. And then I think one other thing is to, especially if you sort of want to take part and maybe you would like to get featured, is to think about the thumbnail, that it's quite clear and readable, because when, you know, you look through all the sort of entries that the thumbnail is sort of that you can immediately, oh, like that's interesting because it's so tiny. So being sort of mindful with that, I think. So composition and having contrasts and these kind of things.
Okay. And probably you would agree that in whatever you do in your craft, you have to grow. You have to evolve and learn new things. What is your direction right now? What are you learning? Like, apart from video part, like
so with the photo, I think, well, like the Photoshop, sort of just getting better at using Photoshop is noticed like I'm more and more like getting crazier ideas, so I have to get better at Photoshop to be able to do them. So that's one thing. But I think also trying to combine that sort of whimsical world, which can be quite colorful and quite happy, with sort of that there's still depth in it, and it can still be, I don't know how to say, like have a bit melancholy in it, like, you know, more sort of like the fine art and conceptual artist. So I'm trying to sort of combine those in a way that it feels like me, and trying to maybe find something new. And also that's where I'm interested in the high fashion photography, because there it's so much about looking good. And my photos are often, you know, it's an idea. And then the sort of how I pose and how I look, I haven't maybe thought about that so much. You know, it's more like, okay, I place myself here and then I stand there. So now I'm trying to also activate my body more, and poses and those kind of things. So it's all very sort of detailed, like nitty gritty and these kind of experiments. But that's sort of like the really detailed level of what I'm working with now and sort of striving to find.
In your self-portraits, you sometimes, of course, you look smiley and happy, but in some of them you're like very, very serious. It's nice to see two parts of you.
Yeah, and I feel like it's really, because that's how life is, and you know, that's how I am as a person. I have this sort of very bubbly personality, but then there's also a lot of depth, and I think a lot about things, and sort of trying to wanting to explore both in my photography is really what I'm trying to do. And also because on Instagram it can sometimes feel that you get boxed in, and maybe people only want this from me, and what can I do? And I'm all the time trying to defy that. I really want to go, you know, after what it interests me and what I'm curious about. So that's also when you scroll, you see sometimes the colors go all crazy, and sometimes, you know, I have phases where I like, so it's, but I don't want to limit myself. And there's also a lot of people talk about like planning your feed, and okay, now it needs to be a dark one, now it needs to be a light one. I think about those things, but still it's the ideas that is my sort of driving force, or like that's the thing that I always stick to.
Yeah. So the question to you would be, will you post a picture if you really like it, but you're sure that probably your audience will not like it as much? Will you do that?
I will, but I will definitely, if it's a picture that I really, really sort of like. But I think it's something about having that. Sometimes I definitely do a picture because I think, okay, I know this will do quite well, so I will do it, but still do it in a way where I feel really proud and happy about it. And sometimes I will try something, experiment. I know this might totally fail, this might get like completely bomb, but I will still try because I know, you know, that I will learn something from it. And then I think it's really about finding that balance, because I think people are also good at noticing if you're doing something, if you're posting something just to post and trying to please. So even though sometimes maybe a picture doesn't do so well, I think it's still better to keep, like, be true to yourself. And but it's, of course, it's like you're all the time, how much do the sort of likes influence your creative choices and all these things? I think it's a constant. You have to sort of be like listening to yourself and to that. And of course now it's sort of my work, so it's also, I am sort of very aware of it.
Yeah. So when you post, I actually will go with a different question. I'm like, it's sort of lost. But yeah, so many people right now, they're just I don't know, kind of imprisoned by this idea of getting likes and likes and likes, and that they're always thinking that they need to post something very specific, would you recommend to stay very, very like to post the same things or all like over and over again? Not the same, but kind of like
Yeah.
I
know what you
by
mean.
by now you understand definitely like, okay, I'm gonna do this one and it's gonna get like 5,000 likes.
Yeah, yeah, because there
Won't-
is,
won't.
yeah. No, I know what you mean. There's a lot of videos when you go out and look. So, how to grow an Instagram account, for example, and then people say, find your niche and stick to your niche. If it's coffee, then only post pictures of coffee and these kind of things. And of course, sometimes I also see accounts that really they post the same thing all the time and you see them growing. But I think if you want to make it into a career or work or, sort of build up your own visual portfolio, then I think, the rules are different. Sure, for getting growth and maybe people come back and they know what they will get. But as a creative person, I think that would not be so interesting and not so fun. But I think it's maybe what it is about is then sort of finding, okay, what are sort of the parameters that I am gonna be in? So yeah, for me, it's like having this whimsical element and sort of like, but then also the reality. So I'm sort of like combining the reality with magic in a way. And that can be like in so many different ways, but it's always there in some sense. But that also took me a long time to find that is sort of my thing.
Yeah. How do you come up with captions?
Oh, captions. I often struggle with them. I don't find that I'm very good with words. It's usually I'm very sort of a visual thinker, but sometimes it's like really obvious that the photo, I've had like an idea and it's a story I want to talk about. But often it is, I will do the whole photo. I would almost be like ready to press, share. And then sort of what is in that moment and what I would like to talk about and I try to be as genuine as possible, but they're also because it's so like, like, okay, will this get a lot of comments? Will people engage? And I try to very actively like nothing, because always the best sort of conversations happen when you are very in the moment saying something that, like when you're talking to a friend.
Yeah.
But I struggle with the captions, definitely.
Yeah, well, sometimes it happens to me too. When do you actually realize that you're an Instagram influencer? Because it can be like a very awkward transition from a regular person to like...
I know, and it's so like, it's such a weird word, that whole thing. But I think actually it's sort of, I started to really feel sort of okay with it, or like proud to say it, once I moved to London. Somehow here, because I've been to some events and also the industry is bigger here than maybe, especially like in Helsinki, which is quite a small country still, or Finland. And so I think when I moved to London, it started to hit me, and also maybe brands approaching more, and I could really see also a more maybe that I was taking as a professional, so people sort of expect something from you, and then you sort of rise up to that challenge. But it's a weird word, I think, and I still think I try to think outside of Instagram. Sure, that is sort of my main thing right now, but also like building is something, of course, beyond that, and having those photos, as a visual portfolio, and like sort of creating a body of work. And but it's really kind of strange.
Yeah, I understand.
But very fun.
Yeah, so the Instagram scene in the UK is completely like, no, maybe not completely, but very different from what you had in Sweden and in Finland, right?
Definitely. And I think it's also, of course, back then I was also just starting out, so I wasn't sort of so part of it. But now I feel also, because quite a lot of the people I engage with and my community is a lot in UK, so it makes sense for me to be here. But also you can just see there's so many more sort of agencies in London and just brands that are more like geographically want to work with Instagrammers that are in the UK. So more opportunities that have sort of opened up to me.
Yeah, of course. And I think it's very like it's amazing when you have an opportunity to actually meet people who do the same thing and who understand what you're doing. Because
Oh no.
yes, so, sometimes you walk into a room and I personally have hard times um introducing myself to people. What do you do? Like
Yeah, but for you it should be easy. It's like you're a photographer, but do you still feel that it's difficult to
yeah.
say that?
Yeah, because they're weddings.
Ah,
No,
yeah,
not
yeah.
weddings.
Yeah. No, I see. Yeah, of course, because it's so much more. And if they haven't sort of, I think the easiest now, I always just like show the, like, I open Instagrams, like, because it's so difficult to, like you say, describe, like, what it is, and sort of,
Yeah,
there's
but
so
then
much.
some people they think that you want to show off. Maybe
Yeah,
like
yeah.
with me it happens sometimes. So I just say that I'm a photographer and then do fun
Yeah.
pictures.
And then people just like, okay, moving on.
Move on.
Nice.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about working with brands. Did they reach out to you directly? Like, do they right now, or do you work with agencies more? And how is it organized? Tell us.
Yeah, so in the beginning, I would reach out myself to some brands and sort of introduce myself, and if it was a brand that I thought would fit, and then usually, then I would sort of just trying to find, go and Google on LinkedIn, like social media manager for this brand, and try to find it that way, or on Instagram, I would send like some messages, or like trying to get like, hi, I'm here. And now quite often it will be an agency, like through an agency that they contact me. So quite often like brands now sort of find me on Instagram. Yeah, and usually, mostly at least now, it's been through agencies. And then I'm also part of, for example, Whalar, which is like a platform for like especially like creative Instagrammers, and they connect you to brands, for example. So it's like a little, yeah, it varies a little bit, and sometimes now sort of most of the collaborations I do are paid, but then if it's a brand I really like and I want to like establish a relationship with, I also do it sort of, like maybe you get like a product and sort of these kind of gifted, and so it varies, but always sort of learning from my mistakes in the beginning. Now I really think hard, like if it's something I want to do, can I do something really cool with it, like for the content? Because sometimes I maybe in the beginning when you're so excited, like, oh, somebody wants to work with me, and then you get it, and then it's like, oh, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. But you learn.
Yeah, of course. What was the hardest mistake?
So there was this candle thing that I did, and it was really, really in the beginning, and it was just, because I had sort of committed to it, and then I took a picture, and they were sort of, I wasn't so sure about the picture, and then I said that in a story, and then they got sort of, I guess, rightly so, like a little bit like, oh, didn't you like the candle? And that was not at all what it was. It was sort of more me choking on sort of feeling imposter syndrome and not really knowing, and I just shouldn't have done that. Like, I took so much pressure just for a candle, like it's but I learned from that again. Like you learn from these sort of mistakes when you don't believe it, it's very hard to fake it, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you curate those brands who you're working with right now? How do you choose?
So it depends quite often on the brief, like what they're looking for. If it's very sort of specific, like we want this and this and this, I often get a little like me. So, but if it's something, we really want you to be creative with it, we have this thing, then I'm like, oh, yeah, this really fits me. So, and of course, like the thing itself, I have to feel that it sort of fits me, that it's something that I would use anyways, especially if it's like a product of some sort. Because, yeah, I think it's important to be sort of genuine and authentic. There's so much like written about like influencers, just doing it for the money and all these things, and that's obviously not what it's about. And when you work so hard to come to this position, you really want to treasure it and sort of be mindful.
Yeah, I had to reject once a proposal from a champagne brand, And
Oh yeah.
I don't have anything against champagne, but I don't personally drink it, and I felt that it would be me faking doing.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, like yeah, something like that, for example. It's like those things where you just feel like not, and then it's usually like, okay, this is not gonna work probably.
Yes, yes, and people need to understand that even in the very beginning, they can learn from our mistakes as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. No, definitely. Yeah. And I think it's also, I mean, of course, you will do maybe some things that aren't like, wow, but then some of the ones that I've struggled with most, and something maybe that first felt like, I don't know. But then when you think about it, maybe you will come up with like an idea or a concept that actually becomes like something very cool that you would never have done before. So I think it can also be, again, like take it as a creative challenge and like, okay, how can I grow? And I guess in a way, if you think about sort of being a professional in anything, it's always your task is to make it work. Like I'm sure when you work with brands also like how to make their aesthetic work so that it still feels like you and it sort of fits them and sort of
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
process.
You always take self-portraits, and for me that would be like almost impossible, but you do it. And how did you start it? How did you get it started? Was it difficult to start taking self-portraits? And how do you like many people ask, how do you take self-portraits in the streets, like when
Yeah. Oh, that's still super awkward, especially like in London, because there's usually just people all over. Like in Helsinki and Stockholm, usually it can be quiet, you know, you go out in the morning. Here it's just always people. In the beginning, the way I sort of started it was because the pictures I like to look at are usually with people. Like I'm sort of drawn to that. I'm very interested in sort of seeing like human presence in a photo. And that's really why I started to be more and more in the photos, because I felt like sort of the ideas I had or the stories I wish to tell were more that I wanted to have a human in them. And I think that comes back to the choreography and being a dancer and all that stuff. But in the beginning, yeah, I struggled because, especially in the beginning, I only had my iPhone, and taking self-portraits with an iPhone, like you always just look like really bad. So it was really difficult. And then when I got like the first proper camera, I bought a tripod, did the whole like self-timer thing, like, you know, running around and like trying to get yourself sharp. And now I have a sort of like an app which you can connect to the camera so I can see the screen on the phone, which is like such a time saver.
yeah. What kind of camera do you use now?
So I have, it's called the Sony Alpha R, I think it's called. It's like a mirrorless camera. And then me and my boyfriend bought it together in the summer. Was it in the summer? Yeah, in the summer. And yeah, no, it's really like such a game changer. Because I had like a Nikon D3300 before, and now when I'm using this Sony one, and I try to use the old one, it's like night and day. It's just such a big difference, like having a proper camera.
Of course. You mentioned that you tell stories, and I think that's very important now. And I'm even running now a online course on storytelling with photography.
Cool, really cool.
Yeah. I would love to know how your stories are born. So you have some idea at the beginning. Do you sketch it somehow?
Yeah. I do. So I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
like super, like these are my two
I
last
can
photos.
recognize them.
Yeah. But so I do try to sketch them, especially if it's something that I'm a little unsure of how it's gonna work. I sketch it, and I mean, like as you can see, like super, like just like, you know, 2 minutes, just like
It's
I don't
better
spend a
than
lot of
mine.
time.
Better than mine.
Okay. Yeah, but I do try to sketch them and sort of see if it works. And if it's something that is like that I've done before, maybe very similar, then I won't sketch it. Then I sort of know. And sometimes it's also you have an idea, like, you know, when you start it and then it doesn't work, and then like at the site you change things and you sort of experiment. But the storytelling, I think it's this somehow like a deep sense of wanting to communicate with people, and then like trying to, this sort of constant search for trying to find the photo or the means to do that. And it's something sort of like you can never really grab it, you know, and that's why you keep trying, because it's like like always sort of coming from sort of different angles. And I think, again, that if there is one story that I think goes through all my photos, it is that looking beneath the surface. And I think you said it also in your interview with Sarah, sort of how you see the world and trying to sort of express it, you know, like maybe what's going on in your imagination, and you try to get it sort of out there somehow.
Yeah, that's interesting. And how is it connected with dance? Were you also taught to tell stories through dancing?
No, I mean, like in modern dance especially, there's like this big shift of, you know, because dance came from sort of telling stories, and like ballet is very story driven. And then dance wanted to really break free from that, and contemporary dance and sort of just have like pure movement, just like movement for movement's sake, sort of. So, but there is like both of it, of course, because then some dance pieces, especially like performances we did, were more sort of, usually, I mean, always there's like a theme and there is some ideas behind it, but not necessarily like A happens, then B happens, which leads to C. So, but more sort of maybe have like fragments and not so, like not a narrative like in the maybe classical sense. But I also think that's why I don't know, I'm definitely fascinated by telling stories, and you can't really call them anything else than it is stories, like, because when you look at a photo, it is so immediate, like, and people get their own sort of associations with it.
I like how you, of course, use very different objects and combine them with real life situations, like banana peels or whatever you find. But I see that wings is kind of like your thing, and you have this hashtag.
My found wings.
Did you sort of have some kind of was it a challenge, or
no? It's sort of, so I did
people joined and did the same thing.
Because I did like one photo with the wings. I think it was it the, I can't even remember. No, it was like with flowers, the first one. And then I one day was thinking, okay, like we should do a photo. What could I do? And then I thought the leaves are really pretty outside now. I could do another one of those. And then and then I had done 3, I think. And then I thought like, hey, this could become a series, and like using seashells and sort of different things. And that's sort of how it started. And then I thought, I mean, and of course it's not like original, like people have done it before, but I just felt like it was something that I sort of wanted to do more of, and it was really fun to try to come up with like ideas for it. And then I just said to people like, hey, do you want to join in? Do you also want to do that? I would love to see what you would find. And then that's sort of, then I created the hashtag, and that's sort of how it became.
I actually think that it would look a great as like a great series, because somehow, like I always say when people ask me like about copying or imitating someone, when you take some old idea but you do it as good so that it becomes your own, and I think this idea with wings, it actually became yours. So well, for me at least, whenever I see something with that, I immediately just think of you. So I think it would make a great series, definitely.
But I think maybe. But that's also cool that you say, because I think it's true that often maybe we hold ourselves back because we think somebody's done it, and like, oh, that's not original. But if you do it in your own way, nobody's, like, you haven't ever done it before, nobody's seen it. And I think that's this constant, like everybody who's creative and trying to do work, like, of course everything's been done before, but like you just have to sort of, you know, so what, do it your way. You're doing it to discover things in your life, not because somebody else, you know, like trying to sort of stick to that.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask you, how do you manage to create great engagement in your account? Because I think that there are many artists and photographers and content creators and illustrators who have amazing works, but then they don't really engage with their followers. How to do that? Tell us about.
Well, I think the first sort of very natural is because I'm so much in my photos, so people sort of get that, oh, I'm here again. And the second is I do, like, even though I struggle with the captions, I do want to say something. I feel it is sort of like a privilege to have like a voice, you know. It's not like taken for granted that you can say
Yeah.
something in the world. So taking that seriously and trying to like that. And then of course like replying comments, going and trying to see what others are doing and sort of being like human, you know, like not trying to pretend or being sort of not caring. I think that's, and then one thing that has now I really see that my engagement is also, or I get different kinds of messages because I'm in my stories myself, like people see you and you talk and you have a voice. It's not only sort of the text, and also the YouTube video or the YouTube channel has really, I think, helped with that. I get like more personal messages in a way, because I put myself more out there, so people also want to sort of come somehow give back, or they feel maybe that they know you more. But I think that's, yeah, the whole engagement aspect of it is, it's in a way also takes a lot of commitment and time.
Yeah, of course, of course. And also when you come up with those things that, my good old photo, you did that.
Yeah, the
sort
favorite.
of-
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like sharing yours, like an old photo that was your favorite, and sort of sharing it again. Yeah, exactly. And those, it's so funny. I was thinking about it. Usually, the best, like these kind of sharing your photo, or now I'm doing the 31 photos in March challenge. They're always like very spur of the moment ideas I get. I get like, hey, that would be cool, and without really thinking about it too much, then I sort of just do it, and then I think it works and it resonates. Because it's not so, oh, I should be strategic. How do I get people to engage? You know, because it comes from like a
I
very,
agree. I get the same. Yeah.
yeah. You feel that, yeah, you have the same. That it's sort of like that.
Yeah. When I, especially when I think of what to come up with to make it interesting for the audience, it's always like,
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
ready.
And then it's
Let's
just
try that.
no, but it's really, and that's why I think it's so, like, it's so good to look at sort of tips and listen to what people say, but in the end I think it's still, you can't really architect it, you know, like it's still also just having to sort of really staying true to what interests you, and then that excitement like is trumps everything else, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I have turned on the comments now, so if
Okay.
people want to send us questions,
Oh.
there's one from Anthony Kongs. How long does it take you to edit a photo?
Good question. It depends. So for the one that I did yesterday, for example, which was me standing on sort of a roof and like, yeah, like this.
One of my favorites, definitely.
Yeah, it was. I'm really happy it turned out so, like, very, very little time. It turned out so nice. And that took me maybe 3.5 hours, 4 hours or something. So I literally yesterday at 5 o'clock, I had done some other photos for an ad I'm gonna do. And then thought like, okay, I have to, you know, I'm doing this challenge. I have to have a photo of my own as well. At 5 o'clock, I took my photo tripod and my camera, went up and took the photos. And then I placed myself on the roof, and then I edited the wings in. So yeah, but it depends. Usually minimum, if it's a photo that is sort of has some kind of illusion in it or trick, 3 to 4 hours, sometimes 10 hours. I've done photos that have like taken, because there's just like so many, and especially if the photo doesn't work how you want it, and then you have to like the composition doesn't work for some reason, and you have to do, or a lot of small, there was like a lot of cars in the street, and then you have to like spend an hour just trying to Photoshop out some cars because it just doesn't look right, and like, you know, these like, and when you get like obsessed with some details that you just can't, maybe it would be good enough, but you're just like, no, I have to do this shadow completely. Right?
Yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah, you know, I'm sure you know, I think.
Definitely. Right now, there are so many courses, online courses, especially on Instagram, on doing self-portraits, and many of them are paid, but you are so generously sharing your information for free. And why do you think it's important?
I think, well, first of all, well, everybody can't take the courses, and I think a lot of them a lot of the courses you don't need. I think it's also an excuse to not do the work. You think you pay for a course and then you think you're going to learn something that you couldn't just by doing it yourself. I've never taken a course. Everything I sort of have Googled and tried out has been free. And then, well, to be transparent, my boyfriend also, he has worked with Photoshop and he works with visual like for a living. So he's helped me also. So it's not like completely sort of self-taught. He's helped me. But I think it's also because the way at the moment sort of I make a living is by sort of doing work with brands, and that's sort of how I'd like to my income. So I feel like then I want to put out all this sort of free content, and then sort of I get to do my creative work like with more sort of brands that have, you know, and it's not really, I mean, I've thought about like making courses many times, and it probably would be really interesting and fascinating, but at the same time, I don't feel maybe yet that I have, I think I need to be further. I need to have like something own to say, like there's so many out there that are probably, and also maybe the whole teaching aspect. Now I'm doing it with YouTube, sort of sharing my observations, but I don't feel like it also, because that also, like when you start to do it, like you do your workshops and things, like it takes a lot of time, commitment, then you have to do it 100%. And I'm more sort of now selfish and wanting to really be sort of creating, but then I want to still share because I know how much that has helped me. That was really a long answer, but yeah.
Yeah. We have a very interesting question from Gavronska S.
Yeah.
What do you feel when you create, and what emotions go through your head?
Oh my God. I will fail. Will this work? Will this work? Like,
Come on,
that it's always, yeah. Like a huge amount of uncertainty always when I do something, always. And even though as you do it more, of course, you might know or have a somehow deep in you that that this will probably work out, but still feeling very sort of insecure about it until like it's done and you can see like, okay, and even to that point, like to show your work, I think it's always super vulnerable. I always feel like a little like, will I share this? Okay, I will share this. Like, like it's because when you put a lot of effort and you do put, you know, a piece of your soul into the work, it means a lot to you. So when people say also, it's not about the likes and stuff, of course it's not, that shouldn't guide you, but still we're human. Of course it will affect you. So you're not like made of stone, especially if you're a creative person. But then it's just about, I think, sort of place your energy where it's should be, which is the work again, like being sort of creative. And that's still, that's where I feel like I'm most in my element and I feel the happiest is when I'm creating.
Yeah.
At the same time. Yeah.
Great. I feel the same actually. And there is a question from the Nuthead Garden. How do you manage to stay so energetic and excited all the time? Or so it seems from your videos.
Yeah, no, I do. I think I mean, obviously it goes up and down, like, and I don't show the moments where I'm on the couch like, ah, I have those definitely, but I don't know. I've always been a pretty fast paced, as you can see also when I speak, like I'm pretty impatient also, which is like good and bad, which is why
I had just experienced that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's, but I think you know, we only have one life, you know, I would like to do as much and discover as much as I possibly can. It could end tomorrow. Yeah, you know, so like truly trying to make the best out of it and trying to really sort of fight for doing the things that I would like to spend my life doing. And then, you know, and of course I come from a family, both my parents are artists and like freelancer, and I saw them really work a lot, you know, so even if I like being creative, it doesn't mean like you just sit and daydream. It's like work, and I love that. Like I really like to do stuff. So yeah, but then also, I mean, you know, I have 2 cats. That makes me happy. I have a boyfriend who is very nice, and you know, those kind of like, you know, eating chocolate, like going and taking, a latte, like these kind of small things is also what I can get ridiculously excited about.
Yeah, but it's great when you enjoy every single bit of it. And I think
Yeah.
it's great that you're sharing it with your community, with us, and we're very grateful for that. Because
Oh,
it's
that's
nice
nice.
when some people, they definitely need it to just maybe get on an app and see something bright and which brings light, a little bit of light into their lives.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much, like, especially we're also consuming so much photos. So if you
Yeah.
can sort of have something that makes somebody smile or like, oh, like
Yeah.
that's like great.
Yes, and we talked about completely the same thing with Anna and Daniel. Do you know them?
Yeah.
Yes, and they said that that's their goal as well, because there's
Yeah.
so many negative stuff going on in our lives, and it's really nice when someone can just bring some light to you, some happiness, just maybe in a little
Exactly.
square photo, but
Yeah, from this little thing. And of course, like, like with, I think everybody on Instagram, like we have bad days, and I also go like, not everything is happy, happy, joy, joy, obviously, but I've chosen very specifically for my Instagram that that's like sort of, I want to sort of bring the positive and sort of focus on that because exactly for those reasons, because I feel there is so much. And also, like, politically and globally things happen, and it's not like I'm ignorant, and of course you have to be aware, but it's just I've decided that this space for me is sort of my creative and where I express myself, so it doesn't sort of fit there, if that makes sense.
Okay, yes, it does, definitely. And what are your artistic plans and Instagram plans, and like where do you see yourself in maybe 1 year, 3 years, or 5?
That's a good question. At the moment, I'm sort of thinking or starting to think more of this whole Instagram thing, also more like as an overall business, that it's not just, I'm doing it for Instagram, all eggs in one basket, but also, having the YouTube and sort of trying to build maybe a larger thing. I'm not really sure exactly what that will be in the end, or if it will be, consulting some brands or doing work, or if it's sort of, because we also don't know where the influencer industry and all this, how long it will last, where will it go. But definitely I know like this is something I really enjoy and it feels really right for me at the moment. So I'm just gonna sort of take it one step at a time and see, like, I mean, also when everything I've done really, I've never, it's like one thing because you get curious about something leads to the next and then you'll see. So I don't know, but now it feels sort of like building up sort of my whole, my empire.
Oh, okay. We have another question from Sebastian. Hi, Sebastian, by the way.
Hello.
He's one of my followers. How do you push yourself out of your own comfort zone?
I think that comes back to, because I was a performer for many years and I started with dance. So I've always been, I think, intrigued by doing things that are a little scary, because I often feel that those make you feel more alive and you sort of get reminded again of that, because it's so easy to get numbified and just like you go through life the same way. So doing things that sort of are a little scary and you're not sure if it's gonna work.
They remind you that you're alive.
Yeah. It really comes, I think, down to that, and it just also makes life more exciting. Like you sort of, and maybe I think there's a curiosity just to see, like, if you get an idea or you have something you'd like to do, like, will it work? Like, and then that sort of curiosity wins over any sort of doubt or fear, because you just want to see, like, I wonder, like, could I pull this off? So I think that's sort of what pushes.
Yes, it's an amazing how it is very similar to me. Yeah. But I have as well. And I could talk to you for hours, definitely. I think we have so much in common and yet different, and it's we could talk and talk and talk, but we will be very soon interrupted by Instagram.
Yeah.
And I would love to thank you so much for your time, for just being there and bringing that light into people's lives. for sharing your information so generously. And make sure to check out Veronika's content on YouTube. And she also has an ebook, which is also great. And she has lots and lots of very useful tips on her blog.
Yeah, yes,
I guess
foodwakiva.com.
Thank you so much for listening up until the very end of this episode. It was a privilege for me to be on your ears. If you liked this episode, please comment on it or shoot me a direct message on Instagram saying what is the main thing that you will take away from this particular interview. Also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe, like, and review the podcast on your app. It will mean a world to me to know what you think.